What is the India story? It's the story of the world's biggest democracy.
We are developing the road infrastructure. In the end of 24, it will be equivalent to the road infrastructure of USA.
We have now entered the growth phase. And I believe that the growth rate in India is going to be exponential.
Welcome and thanks for tuning in. You're watching Gravitas. My name is Priyanka Sharma. Here's our show for tonight. Global supply chains are once again under threat. Because of the ongoing war between Israel and Hamas, tankers and cargo ships are being targeted by the Houthis in Yemen. And all of us will pay the price for this. Because what happens in the Red Sea affects all of us, from the cost of petrol to your favorite smartphone. Everything depends on what happens in the Red Sea. And India understands that. India knows the significance of this crucial shipping route. India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi has spoken to his Israeli counterpart Benjamin Netanyahu and has made it clear that India stands only for peace. This will be our focus tonight on Gravitas. Also on the show, the Wuhan virus is back. A new subvariant has got India on guard. The US, Germany, the UK, Singapore, all are reporting a spike in cases. Should you be worried? What should you do in the holiday season? We'll discuss tonight. A strong overnight earthquake rattled northwest China, at least 127 dead, more than 230 injured. Roads and houses damaged, power knocked out. We'll bring you the latest. And on the show tonight, we bring you the story of bravery and resilience from the Indian Railways. In a remarkable feat, railway staff saved thousands of lives. We'll tell you how. All coming up on the show tonight. A couple of hours ago, India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi spoke with his Israeli counterpart Benjamin Netanyahu. Prime Minister Modi highlighted India's stand on the ongoing Gaza war. India is in favor of early restoration of peace. The conversation between the two leaders comes less than a week after India at the United Nations voted in favor of an immediate ceasefire. The Israeli Prime Minister thanked Prime Minister Modi for India's support in Israel's just war to destroy Hamas. I'm quoting. Now remember, the Israeli campaign against Hamas in the Gaza Strip has killed more than 19,000 Palestinians. Thousands of them are children. What's more, the 50,000 plus Gazans who have been injured in Israeli strikes are struggling to get even the basic medication for treatment. The health system in this tiny Palestinian enclave has totally collapsed, and this has renewed calls for a ceasefire in Gaza. As death and devastation grip Gaza, the most immediate ripple effect of this war is showing 1,000 miles away in the Red Sea. Here, global supply chains are once again under threat. You see, in recent weeks, Houthis have stepped up their attacks on ships passing through the Red Sea. They say this is in response to Israel's ongoing bombardment of Gaza. At first, they were targeting Israel-linked ships only, but of late, it seems all tankers, all cargo ships have come under attack. Houthis have launched drones as well as missile attacks from Yemen, and although the damage caused so far has been minimal, the threat alone has left the crucial trade route through the Red Sea at a near standstill. This reportedly featured in the conversation between Prime Minister Modi and Benjamin Netanyahu. According to the Times of Israel, the two leaders spoke about safeguarding free shipping. They acknowledged the threat posed by Houthis and the global interests in preventing harm to international trade, including the economies of Israel and India. The statement reportedly quotes Prime Minister Modi highlighting the need to protect the freedom of shipping. The conversation between Prime Minister Modi and Netanyahu comes on the day that the US announced a 10-nation force to protect the Red Sea. Let me explain. In response to the Houthi threat, a Red Sea patrol force has now been formed. It includes Bahrain, Canada, France, Italy, the Netherlands, Norway, Seychelles, Spain, the United Kingdom and the United States. Announcing the decision, US Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin said that this multinational security initiative seeks to uphold the foundational principle of freedom of navigation. The US Defense Secretary said that the aim is to tackle the challenge posed by non-state actors. The Iran-aligned Houthis have ramped up their attacks in the strategic choke point called the Bab el-Mandeb Strait. It is part of the most densely packed shipping channel in the world. All ships that pass through the Suez Canal pass through this very strait in the southern entrance of the Red Sea. It accounts for about 12% of global trade. On Monday, the Houthis attacked a Norwegian-owned Swan Atlantic and the MSC Clara. They used naval drones for the attack. The first vessel had no link to Israel. It is reportedly managed by a Singaporean firm. So securing this particular strategic choke point has taken on a new sense of urgency. Everything, from the cost of petrol to the availability of the latest electronic device, it all depends heavily on the security of the Red Sea. Billions of dollars of trade goods pass through these waters. Any delay here, any disruption means disruptions around the world. According to reports, more countries could be included in the patrol force. Egypt and Jordan could join the security initiative. There's also the possibility of Saudi Arabia joining this coalition. In the meanwhile, at least 12 shipping companies have suspended transit through the Red Sea for obvious reasons. Today, UK oil giant BP became the latest firm to announce that it will avoid the waters altogether. Therefore, Houthi attacks have effectively rerouted a significant portion of global trade. Freight companies are now taking a longer route. They are sailing around the African continent just to avoid any possible Houthi attacks. What does this mean? Higher costs and longer delays. Food, energy, as well as consumer goods are going to be affected as a result. In light of these developments, will this US-led patrol force succeed in what it has set out to do? That's a big question, and we, of course, will be paying close attention to all the developments. I told you yesterday, the Wuhan virus is back, and it remains our top focus today as well. In India, the air smells of precaution. After Kerala, the JN.1 variant has now been recorded in Goa. There are at least 15 new cases of this subvariant that we know very little about as of now. States have their guards up, and so do other countries. COVID cases in Malaysia have doubled. Singapore has become a country of great concern. Indonesia has asked those travelling to be as vigilant as they were back in the pandemic era. I have to say, it's deja vu December. And I'm bringing you the latest at 9 p.m. IST. India has reported 142 new Wuhan virus cases in the last 24 hours. The active caseload has gone up to 1,970. At least one person has died. The victim was from Karnataka. The new subvariant JN.1 has become the talk of town. The subvariant has now been found in samples collected in Goa. Across India, Wuhan virus cases are steadily rising. In the last 24 hours, new cases were recorded in Kerala, Karnataka, Maharashtra, Puducherry, Gujarat, Tamil Nadu, Madhya Pradesh and Delhi. As for the active cases, Kerala alone accounts for 1,600. So the next obvious question is, how is India reacting to the upsurge? Testing has been scaled up in Uttar Pradesh. Like we told you, Karnataka has asked the elderly and those with underlying comorbidities to mask up immediately. The Government of India has advised states to monitor and report cases of any influenza-like illness, any symptoms, any cases of severe acute respiratory illness as well. This new subvariant has come with a fear factor. The world has seen what the Wuhan virus is capable of. India remembers the horrors of the Delta variant. So could JN.1 be as transmissible as deadly? The answer is we don't know yet. The JN.1 was first detected in Luxembourg. In September, the subvariant was found in the US. China reported a case on the 15th of December. The country of particular concern here is Singapore. Why do I say that? Because in Singapore, cases are rapidly rising. Let me show you some statistics from Singapore's Ministry of Health. On the 28th of November, the daily average of COVID-19 infections was a little over 3,000. Cut to present, the number now is 7,730. Cases have doubled. Look at the weekly numbers. That too has almost doubled, from 32,035 to 56,043. That's a big jump. Singapore's Ministry of Health is now updating COVID numbers daily. It is back to the pandemic drill. Because the situation is getting worse. Hospitalization has gone up. Around 349 people are being admitted to the hospital daily. This is in comparison to 224 the week before. Average ICU admissions have gone up from 4 to 9. That's more than double. The statistics are grim, and Singapore is pointing the finger at JN.1. Businesses have increased their cleaning frequencies. A second COVID-19 treatment facility has opened at the Singapore Expo. The facility aims to cater to those who do not need intensive hospital care. Let's look at Indonesia now. The country has recorded 2,243 new cases. In Jakarta alone, 200 cases are being recorded daily. The JN.1 variant has been reported in Jakarta, Batam city, and the Riau Island province. The country's Vice President, Maruf Amin, said on Monday that mask wearing has been advised in some locations. Reports say thermal scanners have come back at some border checkpoints. This includes Jakarta's International Airport and the Batam Ferry Terminal. Let's talk about Malaysia now. Cases have doubled in the week ending December 2nd. The country's transport minister has advised people to mask up on public transport. The country's Kelantan Islamic Religious and Malay Customs Council too has advised people to go back to wearing face masks when at the mosque. The Yang di Pertuan Agong, or unofficially the King of Malaysia, has advised people to avoid 3 C's: crowded places, confined spaces, and close conversation. That's the situation in Asia as of now. The Wuhan virus is making its way back into people's homes. Elsewhere too, it's not too different. Take the case of Germany, the United Kingdom, the United States. They are all reporting a steady rise in Wuhan virus cases. So, what should you do? How can you keep yourself safe as well as your loved ones safe? It is, after all, the holiday season. Airports and railway stations will be crowded. Tourist spots will be buzzing. Hotels and restaurants will be fully booked. But what's needed right now is awareness. People need to understand that celebration can wait. If you are feeling under the weather, stay home. If you have symptoms like a cough, a headache, sore throat, or difficulty breathing, then call your doctor immediately. Prioritize precaution. Mask up. Bring back sanitizing, hand washing frequently. And if you are traveling, be extra careful. Now, here's what authorities should do. 1. Focus on crowd management. Ensure spaces are well ventilated. This will minimize the spread of the new variant. 2. Prepare hospitals. Ensure states have adequate beds, oxygen cylinders. India has come a long way since Delta. India's healthcare infrastructure has been ramped up. Today, there are critical care hospital blocks in every district. Lab networks have been strengthened. There are dedicated COVID care centers. India's medical staff has been trained to handle the Wuhan virus. Today, 95% of the Indian population has received at least 2 doses of the Wuhan virus vaccine. But will the vaccine be effective against this new subvariant? We don't know. But what we do know is that winter months and pollution compromise our immunity as is, year on year. So what we need is to stay alert, to stay vigilant, and above all, stay calm and do not panic. It was a cold winter night in China. The mercury had dipped to minus 14 degrees Celsius. Many were fast asleep. When the clock was about to strike midnight, the earth shook. Everything was suddenly upside down. A 6.2 magnitude earthquake jolted China's Gansu province. This is a cold and mountainous region in the country's northwestern part. This is where it lies on a map. At least 127 have been killed. More than 530 have been injured. Many others are nowhere to be found. Emergency search is underway. Rescue workers were digging through the night. Take a look. They pulled out those buried under the rubble, but it was no easy feat. You see, a powerful cold wave has swept across China. These rescuers were working in sub-zero temperatures. The mountainous terrain also posed its own set of challenges. The earthquake also triggered a landslide. A village was half buried in silt. As you can see on your screens right now, a large swathe of land in the village has been flattened. Most houses have cracked or even collapsed. Alleys are flooded with debris. Rescuers were seen using bulldozers to sift through the silt. At around 4 in the morning, a majority of trapped villagers were successfully rescued. They are now taking refuge in the village square. It has become a temporary shelter for the survivors. Some were fortunate enough to get a warm meal. It was a night of horror in China, but the true extent of destruction and damage was only revealed by daylight. Take a look at these visuals. You can see shattered roofs, collapsed houses. This was somebody's home until last night. Many other horrifying videos have emerged. Some residents of the Gansu province were peacefully enjoying a meal. That's when the earthquake struck. It took a few moments for the realization to settle in. When it did, the diners dashed out of the restaurant to save their lives. Other clips shared on Twitter showed property shaking and collapsing. See them for yourself. Gansu is one of China's poorest areas. It is also one of the least accessible ones. Rescue operations are proving to be difficult here. Restoration will also be challenging. China's state planner has allocated 250 million yuan for reconstruction work, and that is some $35 million. Meanwhile, President Xi has called for all-out search and rescue efforts. Keeping political tensions aside, Taiwan has also offered to help. President Tsai Ing-wen tweeted that Taiwan stands ready to offer assistance in the disaster response effort. The island nation has put together a search and rescue team of 160 people, 4 dogs and 13 tons of supplies. They are ready to go to China if requested, but will China allow any overseas rescue teams? Seems unlikely. But what happens if the Gansu province is jolted once again in the coming days? Authorities say this is quite likely. They have predicted aftershocks as high of magnitude 5. Listen.
There is still a possibility of aftershocks with a magnitude up to 5.0 occurring in the epicenter area in the coming days.
So how is China bracing up for this? It has deployed 4 satellites to monitor the affected area. High-resolution images from the scene will help the authorities keep an eye on landslides and buildings. The country has already endured a 6.2 magnitude earthquake, the deadliest one in a decade. Can it handle another one? India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi has made a big charge at the opposition parties today. He alleges that they are rattled after being defeated in the recently held state polls. He says they are frustrated and that is why they disrupt parliamentary proceedings. Prime Minister Modi's big statement comes on a day when a record number of MPs have been suspended in a single day. 141 MPs have been ejected from Parliament, both from the lower house and the upper house. It's a figure which is unprecedented in the history of the Indian Parliament. Why? They say it's for a simple reason. They say they want accountability from the government. They say they want answers. Answers to why and how on 13th December, on the 22nd anniversary of the 2001 terror attack on Parliament, 2 men breached the security of Parliament once again. For seeking answers on how the intruders managed to evade layers of security to enter the House and release coloured smoke. Yesterday, 79 MPs were suspended. Today, 49 MPs have been suspended. These include National Conference leader Farooq Abdullah, Indian National Congress leaders Shashi Tharoor and Karthi Chidambaram, Nationalist Congress parties Supriya Sule, Samajwadi parties Dimple Yadav and many more. Since the security scare last week, the opposition MPs have been protesting in both houses of Parliament. They wanted the Home Minister Amit Shah to answer questions about the security failure. The Speaker of the lower house, the Lok Sabha, Om Birla, said that the MPs were suspended due to their unruly behaviour. He maintains any security-related incident falls under the purview of the Secretariat. He says, and I quote, "The government cannot intervene in responsibilities of Lok Sabha Secretariat. We will not allow that either." Now, that was last week. That's when the spree of suspensions began. But the suspended members do not see it like that. They feel betrayed. They have criticised the move as unfair. Now, the opposition leaders are up in arms. But more importantly, what does the rule book say? The general principle is that the role and duty. Now, in order to ensure that the proceedings go smoothly, the Speaker or the Chairman is empowered to force a member to withdraw. He or she can direct a member to withdraw if it is found that the member's conduct has been disorderly or disrespectful towards the authority of the Chair. It is meant to clear obstruction in the House so that business can be conducted. But what are the terms of suspension? The maximum period of suspension is remainder of the session. If suspended MPs cannot enter the chamber or attend the meetings of the committees, he or she will not be eligible to give notice for discussion or submission. He or she also loses the right to get a reply to questions. In this case, the ruckus was created because the opposition say they wanted answers from the government. Now that we have all the facts laid out, let me pose the big question. Was it really required? It's a question that matters, and it matters because it is in the interest of the public. Let me explain how. Suspension is supposed to be a last resort. Asking questions is the opposition's right. Answering the questions is the government's responsibility. The Indian Parliament works according to an essential principle, the principle of collective responsibility. It means that the ministers of the council are held responsible to the parliament in any case of consequence. Well, this is a case of severe consequences, so isn't it the responsibility of the ministers to conduct honest and open conversation? Yes, a parliament cannot function if there's constant ruckus. Yes, parliamentarians sometimes resort to deliberate disruptions, but it only highlights the need to strike a balance between deliberate disruption and discussing important issues. It is difficult to conduct business if there are planned parliamentary offences and deliberate disturbances being made for publicity or political reasons alone. In closing, it is quite clear where the buck stops. The responsibility for a well-functioning parliament rests squarely on our elected representatives. They must prioritise smooth operations of the House. They must avoid deliberate disruptions. They must ensure that when they speak up, they truly represent the interests of the people. It is incumbent upon them to be proactive in finding solutions. Let's now move on to India's first winter expedition to the Arctic, a notable development in the field of polar research, marking a new chapter in India's scientific endeavour. Our next report takes a closer look.
India has launched its first winter expedition to the Arctic. The expedition was flagged off at Prithvi Bhavan in New Delhi. It represents a significant leap forward in understanding the complexities of the Arctic and its wide-ranging impact on global climate patterns, sea levels, and biodiversity. Union Minister of Earth Sciences Kiren Rijiju highlighted the mission's potential to reveal new insights into the Arctic's role in global climatic trends. He also emphasized its importance for future climate policies. A dedicated team of 4 scientists from the National Center for Polar and Ocean Research will undertake this mission. Their work will focus on atmospheric studies during the mysterious polar nights, changes in aurora lights, and monitoring the patterns of sea ice. The Himadri station in Svalbard, Norway, is a strategic location for polar research. It will serve as the base for these year-round observations. This enhances India's ability to conduct sustained and comprehensive studies in the region. Positioned in a region where winter temperatures can plummet to -14 degrees Celsius, Himadri presents unique challenges for continuous operations, demanding exceptional preparation and resilience from its resident scientists. The data gathered from this expedition is expected to provide crucial insights into the link between the Arctic climate and the Indian monsoon system, thereby enhancing our understanding of the impact of global warming. With this initiative, India joins a select group of nations, including Russia, Norway, Canada, Denmark, Finland, Iceland, Sweden, and the United States, who have established year-round research bases in the Arctic. This project stresses the need for advanced technological capabilities, strong logistical support, and significant resources. The harsh and unpredictable Arctic environment, marked by extreme cold and limited accessibility, poses severe challenges, making sustained research efforts particularly difficult. Yet, such research is critical for a deeper understanding of our planet. This expedition is not just a scientific mission, it is a symbol of India's growing capability and commitment to addressing global environmental challenges.
Is India's growth story too bitter for the International Monetary Fund? I'm being forced to ask this question. Case in point, the International Monetary Fund's big allegation. The IMF is accusing India's central bank, or the RBI, of excessive interference in the foreign exchange market. In other words, the IMF claims that the Reserve Bank of India is trying to influence the level of the rupee or manipulate its value. What's the basis of this allegation? The rupee's value between December 2022 and October 2023. The IMF is pointing at the fact that the currency moved within a very narrow range. It neither fell too sharply nor did it rise steeply. This, the IMF claims, is indicative of the RBI's intervention. The Washington-based lender has gone to the extent of reclassifying India's foreign exchange regime. In a report released on Monday, India has been classified not as a floating system, but a stabilized arrangement. What's the difference? You see, in a floating system, a currency's value is determined by the foreign exchange market based on the demand and supply of that particular currency. In contrast, in a stabilized arrangement or fixed regime, the government of a country, through its central bank, determines the rate of the currency. So where does India really sit? Let's talk facts. No country in the world sits back and watches its currency take a roller coaster ride. Full disclosure, every central bank intervenes. How can they not? It's a question of economic stability. It's about volatility. The allegation against the RBI is of excessive intervention. India's central bank is calling the IMF's assessment unjustified. For starters, the period that the IMF is basing its assessment on is too short. The RBI has told the IMF that it is using data selectively. Because if you look at the rupee's movement over 2 to 5 years, then the assessment and allegation both fall flat. In 2022, India's currency, the rupee, fell about 8% between December 2022 and October 2023. The rupee lost around 2% against the US dollar. Bloomberg estimates the RBI interfered to the tune of $78 billion through those 9 months. India's $604 billion foreign exchange reserves seem to tell a different story. Despite the intervention, India's import cover is still close to 2021's all-time high of $642.5 billion. What gives then? Was the IMF's assessment in bad taste? Is India's growth story not sitting well with the IMF? Contrast India's economy with that of America. One has repeatedly been called a bright spot. Another has repeatedly been predicted to slow down significantly. Banks have had to close down. Sensex and Nifty 50 are recording all-time highs. They are making global headlines. America, on the other hand, is making bad news. Here's one from an American media outlet. From powerhouse to afterthought, US Steel, once a symbol of America's economic might, set to be sold to a Japanese rival. See the stark contrast? The IMF assessment comes in the light of this. And let's not forget, the IMF's America bias is no secret. And the naysayers of India's growth story are plenty. Who is spying on Ukraine's military chief? Commander Valery Zaluzny has found a rather covert listening device in one of his offices. He also hinted that other locations had also been bugged. Who is interested in what Zaluzny discusses behind closed doors? While Russia may be the obvious answer, there could be more to the story. First, how was the device discovered? Well, it was during a routine sweep of the rooms that the military chief had been using. How long had the device been there? We don't know that yet. The Ukrainian Security Service, or SBU, has not disclosed much. Here's what it has revealed so far. Number one, the device was found at a location that could have been used by Zaluzny, and not directly in his office. Number two, it had been inactive. And number three, there was no evidence of it recording any information. But that's not what Ukraine's top military official had to say. On Monday, Zaluzny claimed that he was going to use the office later in the day. He also hinted at other locations being bugged. So from what it seems, the SBU has tried to downplay the situation. Former Deputy Defence Minister Anna Malyar has insisted that the discovery isn't particularly concerning. To back that up, has cited other instances of Ukrainian classified military information being leaked on social media. But how is normalizing this going to help? For all we know, it may have been an inside job. Reports say the device was made of untraceable parts. This has made identification of its origin nearly impossible. When asked if someone in the general staff could have done it, the military chief said no. He said, and I quote, "No, we have not worked with ears for a long time." But here's the thing. Zaluzny and Zelensky's rivalry is not unknown. Media reports have time and again said that the president and the military chief have been at odds with each other. The Ukrainian government dismisses this as Russian propaganda. But what about what has happened in the public eye? The two leaders have openly clashed over conflicting assessments of the frontline situation in the war. Zaluzny described the situation as a stalemate in early November. Zelensky outright denied his claims. Zaluzny is a celebrated political figure in Ukraine. We can't forget that. He has a fair share of haters. His enemies have been eavesdropping on him to find some blackmail material, and they don't necessarily have to be from Russia. Considering the complicated relationships between Ukrainian officials, their Western backers, and their Russian opponents, anyone could have tried to snoop on Zaluzny. This is not the first time a Ukrainian official has become a target. The war moved on beyond the front lines long ago. The intelligence services of both Russia and Ukraine have been hyperactive since. Only last month, the wife of Ukrainian military spy chief was poisoned, as were several other Ukrainian intelligence officials. The spy chief himself has survived multiple assassination attempts. Earlier in November, the top aide to Ukraine's military chief received a live grenade in a birthday gift. He was killed as one of his presents exploded. There's snooping, there's poisoning, there's sending deadly birthday presents. The military chief says it's all part and parcel of being at war. The war has become highly political. And as for the battleground, nothing major is happening. The Ukrainian army has scaled back on the military operations due to ammunition shortfall. That too along the entire front line. That's what reports say. The US has also declared that it will run out of funding for Ukraine this month. That is, if Congress does not act on the aid package that has been stalled for weeks. So where is this war headed? What will happen next? There are no clear answers as of now. And amid the fog of war, here's another mystery that needs to be solved. Where is Russian opposition leader Alexei Navalny? A week ago, he went missing from prison. Now the United Nations is demanding answers. A UN rights expert has raised her concerns with the Russian authorities. Navalny's whereabouts have been unknown for over a week now. He also missed his scheduled court hearing last Friday. His lawyers were reportedly told by the court that their client is no longer held in the Vladimir region. Navalny's family and lawyers have sent multiple letters to all penal colonies. They have been trying to find him. What have they got in return? Some half-baked information. They were initially told that Navalny might be at the Omsk penal colony, but it was later rejected. You see, after being sentenced to an additional 19 years on extremism charges, Navalny was set to be transferred to a harsher regime penal colony. And reports say that detainees are most vulnerable during such a transportation. They are mistreated and are at grave risk of human rights violations. So is that what happened to Navalny? After all, he was Russian President Putin's main political opponent and his most vocal critic. We will continue to ask, where is Alexei Navalny? I doubt this experience will make her travel solo again. Let's move on. Let's now take a closer look at a developing story coming from Taiwan. A Chinese balloon has been spotted in the skies. But this isn't just a story about a random floating object. It's a story with multiple layers that touch on international politics, espionage, and regional stability. Talk about déjà vu. Let's unpack this.
Earlier today, at approximately 9:09 a.m. local time, Taiwan's Ministry of National Defense reported a balloon crossing the median line. Located 124 kilometers northwest of Keelung, it marks the third such sighting this month, a pattern that's raising eyebrows and fears alike. Primarily due to the potential for surveillance and intelligence gathering. Earlier this year, the United States' F-22 fighter jet shot down what it later identified as a Chinese high-altitude surveillance balloon. This event off the South Carolina coast sparked a global debate over surveillance and airspace violations. In the context of Taiwan, these balloon sightings come against the crucial backdrop of upcoming presidential elections. What do they indicate? Chinese surveillance or something more dangerous? Currently, there are no answers.
Before I wrap tonight's show, I want to tell you a story that I came across this morning. It is a story of India's railway staff, of how they saved the lives of over 800 passengers. The story begins on Sunday night. A Chennai-bound train had left Tamil Nadu's Tiruchendur railway station at 8:30 p.m. local time. There were 800 passengers on board. They had just settled down for their overnight journey. Chennai was over 14 hours away. It was a rainy night. Some 34 kilometers from Tiruchendur, in Srivaikuntham, it began raining heavily. There was a cloudburst. The train was fast approaching Srivaikuntham. It had crossed Kayalpatinam, Arumuganeri, Kurumbur, Nazareth. Srivaikuntham was just 7 kilometers away. The railway engineers at the station had no idea what the rain had done to the tracks. So when the train reached the Srivaikuntham station, the staff decided to stop the train and not let it go any further. This call saved nearly 1,000 lives. Because not too far from the station, the rain had eroded 12 kilometers of the track. It had all been washed away. It was a disaster waiting to happen, one that the Indian railway staff had averted. But the worst was not over. Back at the station, there was confusion, restlessness. The passengers wanted to know why their train had not been allowed to go any further. There were babies on board. There were elderly men and women. The railway staff was flooded with questions. They decided to move the passengers to a nearby relief camp, but just as they had successfully shifted 300 passengers, it began raining all the more heavily. The water level increased and the escape route was cut off. The rescue mission had to be stopped. Those who were still in the train had no way out. They had no option but to spend the night inside the train. The railway staff remained at the station with the passengers. The station's electricity was cut off to avert any disaster. The station was cut off from the rest of the world. There was waterlogging on all four sides, and there was no way to get any food to the passengers. The night turned into morning, and the morning to night. No help came. 2 trucks reportedly tried to get to the station, but they failed. The railway staff and the passengers had no access to food. There was no water. It was only later on Tuesday that water began receding from the station. Railway personnel could finally enter the station and bring help, much needed help, to those stranded. It was a little over 8:30 in the morning. Railway staff waded through flood water and began distributing food packets. Passengers could hear a chopper overhead. The Indian Air Force too had come to the rescue. The chopper was dropping food packets. Their ordeal had finally come to an end. More importantly, they were safe. No one knows what would have happened had the train been allowed to leave the Srivaikuntham station. Why am I telling you this story tonight? So that we recognize the work that India's railway staff puts in. We recognize their commitment to their work. Because we don't do this very often. Every time there is a derailment and an accident, a railway disaster, we point the finger at the railways. We scrutinize the staff. Fair. But on days like these, we must also applaud their dedication and, of course, their decision-making, which in this case has saved lives. And on that note, it's a wrap on Gravitas for tonight, leaving you as always with Gravitas images. I'll see you tomorrow.
Good afternoon. How are you?
Efendim bu 4 yaşında bir aydı. Nasıl oldu?
Katalon'a bakatma vermiş.
Yes.
İyi o yüzden. Good deal. So President.
Ben hemen karşılıyorum.
We are one.
Israel woke up to a barrage of thousands of rockets fired from the Gaza Strip.
אזרחי ישראל, אנחנו במלחמה.
Hostilities have broken out between Israel and Palestine, and the tensions that had been gathering steam over the course of the last several weeks and months.
The siren has gone off. I don't know if you can hear in the background what's going on. I'm going into the shelter now. So it's a very, very serious situation here across Israel. It's a state of emergency.
The United States stands with Israel.
Well, we are starting this broadcast with a developing story from West Asia, where Israeli Defense Minister Yoav Gallant says Hamas has launched a war against the state of Israel.
It's easy to tell you a flat story. It's easy to show you what's happening around the world. We do the difficult part.
This weapon has been banned, but the US, Ukraine and Russia do not find the bombs problematic.
We also tell you why what's happening.
A new drug is making a difference in the fight against Alzheimer's. This medicine helps slow down a patient's cognitive decline.
We look beyond the text. We give you context.
Is China preparing for a war in the Himalayas? And tonight, we come to you with some proof.
Hypocrisy is stunning.
Do leaders mean what they say? Do they ever say what they mean? To find out how real news affects you, your decisions.
Just when Iran took one step in the right direction, its moral police is planning to drag it further back. And once again, the victim will be women.
Watch Gravitas.
Welcome and thanks for tuning in.
We don't impose our views.
Did India threaten to ban Twitter? Either that or Jack Dorsey is lying to you.
That is Gravitas. We let life breathe through our show. Gravitas, the informed show for an intelligent audience.
Hello, welcome to This World. Vladimir